So let us, gravity on this side of the room. Gravity was on that side of the room today, yeah. Okay, I'm centered. So let's take 3 really deep breaths, collect ourselves, or don't collect yourselves, float around the room, but breathe really deeply while you're doing it. So deep breath in, long sigh out. Two more like that, no more words. Deep breath in. Right on, groovy. Okay, so announcements, fun time. Announcements. So tonight we have our Reiki share, correct? Ooh, that would have been messy. I didn't know that water was there. So what I was sharing with someone before service, what our Reiki share is it does, regardless of whether you've ever taken an energy working course in your life, be it Reiki or any other modality, every single one of us is energy workers and healers because you're human and you're born and your spirits and your souls and your angels, and it's all in you and it's all part of us. That's why that innate thing when you bump into someone and you like grab their arm or you grab your own leg, that's why you're doing that, because you're a healer. So come on out. It is hot, right? Can someone go check and make sure the AC is turned all the way down, because I keep going back there. Like 69, please, or it could just be too hot a day for it to contend with it. But I thought it was just me. I'm seeing other people be hot. And that's how much we raise the energy in here, too. We do. That's why we keep it so cold, because we do raise the energy. So back to raising that energy, when we come and do energy work and Reiki shares, we'll set up a couple different tables depending upon how many folks show up. And we each take a turn being the receiver and the giver of energy work. You just lay down on the table and let whomever else showed up bring their love and light and do the energy work with you and just send you that love and light. And then it's your turn to give back to that person, knowing that in the giving there's a receiving that's going on as well. It's always a wonderful experience. It's always that nice, because we have so many different modalities here, and sometimes we're like running around and have to catch our breath. This is that time. It's very quiet and it's very tranquil, and we usually don't even play music in the background, and we can. You don't really need it because you just go off in your own world. So I invite you to that. It's always a love offering scenario, and no one is ever turned away. So if you're thinking, well, I don't have $5 or $10 or anything to give, I can't go tonight and get some loving on me, and I could really use some, you would break the hearts of the people here if they knew that you were wanting or needing a little love and didn't come because you didn't have $1. It's like, please know us better than that. And know that you're part of us and bring that love and light, okay? So that's going to be tonight. Next week, Scott and I have the honor and the wonder of going to Colorado. Yeah. For the Way Through workshop. And I'm like really excited because, you know, I just need to get out of town too. But we're bringing this forward now, and Scott's been working on this solo from his, entering into the Achieve workshops and seminars and learning all these different things through Shannon and the Business Acceleration Network, and bringing the Foot Guy up and up and up as he's creating his brand for that. And he did the same thing with the Way Through while he was out there. So he did a lot of the legwork and pioneering and paving the way. We got enough participants that paid my ticket too. So we're going to go out and have a great time and start injecting who we are into the community there, and having their own light shine one more at a time like we have our philosophies. So that's next week for us. So because of that, we're going to have Miss Lydia for our guest speaker. And her talk is Me, Myself, and I, but I really don't know the body of it. That's why there's not a blurb. There's...
I can tell you a little bit because she came up with it while I was doing a feed.
See, what a good reflexologist. He's got, you want a mic or the house mic? House mic is on.
It's on. So she was talking about the Trinity from that traditional Christian place, but married that to her more science of the mind, metaphysical teachings from up north, and turned that Trinity into Me, Myself, and I.
And that really is that journey through spirit and how you arrive from that core, you know, earth place of being raw to that place of pure spirit and enlightenment. So you move through me, myself, and I, and she's going to teach on that. And it was very groovy when she came up with it. I was kind of blown away. So,
and if you were here for her when she did her first talk here, it blew everyone away. It was awesome. She's awesome. So we get all the different perspectives, and that was because I just had invited someone to do a talk if they wanted to, and she stepped up. So this time I asked her to step up for me because I was hoping to be gone, and I am going to be gone. So yeah. So for diversity night, well, not yay that I'm gone, but I got you. Yay, he's out of here finally. So what do we know? Diversity night that night, or is it still a surprise?
I don't.
I think it says TBD. Okay, so Becky will be happy with that because she's always the one who stresses the most. Send in, if Becky gets to watch this, everybody say hi to Becky. She's out in Tennessee with family, but you know that she's always here and is like a major soul of this place anyway. So, you know, when she's out into the world, she's really still here anyway. So we send some love out to Becky while she's with her family, having fun. So, any more announcements? Yes, Bob Sima on November 7th. We have, if you've never seen this guy before, you're going to enjoy his music a lot. I promise you that. And if you don't, then you'll get a refund of my promise. On my promise. But I know you will. I'm pretty confident you will. And it's like he was due to come out here on September 12th, and we had the hurricane. So we postponed it until November 7th, which is also a Tuesday. So actually, Scott and I have a workshop that weekend here also. The way through will be 3rd through the 5th. And then that following Tuesday, we'll be having the Bob Sima concert, consciousness concert. And their consciousness contribution suggestion is like 15 to 30 bucks. Again, it's a scenario that no one has ever turned away. You know, I will always keep saying this, that if the tables are turning and scarcity is on your side of the table and abundance is on mine, know that it's an always spinning thing. So just come in anyway. And just, you know, if you have $1, fine. If you have nothing and you want to make coffee, time, talent, treasure. You know, again, thanking Chalet and Alicia for coming in here last week and cleaning the place. You know, and helping us. There's many, many, many different ways. Ideas, being part of the board, which is really more the team, because we're getting rid of the board because they're boring. So, but it's more about the people that we have on board instead of the board. And I'm learning different dynamics as I've been working with Shannon and learning how to market us and brand us as a business that is not a not-for-profit business, because we are a for-profit business, and the profit that happens is the impact that we make on the people that walk in and out of our doors. So understand that when you go out there and you say who you're a member of, know that you're bringing that impact with you, and to invite people to come in and go, man, we have so many different things that we do here and are about to embark on. Come on in. One of them is going to be the flavor that you enjoy. So, you know that more and more and more and more and more and more is coming. We're going to be working on the outside and creating a consciousness, what do you call it? Come on now. Urban farming. So long time ago, we kicked this idea around about like hydroponics and stuff like that. And Diane's come up with ideas, and I brought a friend who's going to look at it too with us today, right? And going to look at the dynamics of what's going on in the back room and outside and what we can create, and kind of like create that co-op. So there's more and more and more things coming. There's so much more coming here, guys, that we have outgrown this building. We really have. And it's a good thing. And I think we've been fighting it. And I know my announcements are going longer today, but that's okay, because we are on the cusp of a brand new pod. And it's something that we've been resisting for the longest time because we were staying loyal to what was, staying loyal to these walls, staying loyal to Sue and Melanie because they birthed this baby and brought it here and created such a wonderful thing. And the baby got too big for its clothing, and it's time to go shopping for bigger clothing, because there's more and more things that are happening here, and we're going to impact the world more and more. And every single person that's in this room right now is part of it. It's part of the journey that we're embarking on. So I invite you to get as excited as we are about this, and know that big things are coming and that changes are coming left and right. So keep breathing, because I get overwhelmed with change, and I've gone from my snail's pace to a turtle's pace and to a fast turtle. Now I'm a fast turtle. But the point is, as whatever it takes, you know, and the fourth agreement is always do your best. And as we decide and to intend on doing something and take steps during each day to do that, I may be better at that step today than I was yesterday, but all I look at is this very last thing I did and what I'm going to do next. You wanted to say something?
Yeah. I was going to talk about next week's diversity night. See, I sit on stuff. I got a bad habit of doing that, you know. So the next week's diversity night is entitled Archetypes and the Stories We Tell Ourselves. I've been doing a lot of study about Carolyn Mace and Carl Jung and how the Jungian archetypes manifest themselves in our lives. And I've been doing a lot of personal work with that myself, and found out that some of the people that have been leading are not the people that should be leading and aren't inherent in who I am and the gifts that I bring. So, in unpacking that, I want to unpack that with other people. So y'all that are here, think about the stories that you tell yourselves. Sometimes it helps to think about the fairy tales that we really resonated with as children, and we can unpack the archetypes of that. And it'll include a 30-minute writing exercise where we reframe our stories that we tell ourselves. So hopefully we'll see you there.
And she thought of all that in 2 minutes. No. So see, that's just more evidence of the groovy things coming. You know, the next couple talks coming up for me is, one of them is going to be conscious communicating. And then Jerry and I are going to do a fun solo from a David Roth song, Don't Shit on Me. And another one is Don't Should on Me. And that's the point of the song, though. And then we're also going to have another talk coming up soon about celebrating the dream. And it's all going to be fun. December 10th is going to be our Christmas concert this year. Get with Debbie, Becky, or myself if you want to be in the concert, if you want to be in the choir, if you want to do a solo, if you play an instrument, I don't know, anything. Get with Debbie, and, you know, the more the merrier. It's going to be fun. What's our theme? Speakeasy. It's like the 20s and stuff. It'll be fun. I happen to have a costume like that. Go figure. Go figure. Hey, Nikki. Keith said he would be part of it. I thought, yeah, Keith Leon will be here. We had last week, if you're at Diversity Tonight, we had Robin Krasny, and she was just really delightful. I think she surprised herself and came out like a butterfly out of a cocoon, and it was really neat. And she's gonna be part of it too. Say again? You hit her up? It was wonderful. It was awesome. And that's what I meant, you know, one of the other things that we create here is the pod, to understand that, is that we create a platform for people to shine their light and to embark upon their journey and bringing out their message, whatever it is. Some of it could just be, you know, last week, a couple weeks ago, we had Mrs. Mangoes. And Monica came and just shared with us all the wonders and knowledge and magic that has been passed down through the generations of herbs, and how to properly use them and how to take care of them and how to honor the fact that, you know, bees are not only very important for the ecosystem in our world, but for the ecosystem in our world. So all these different modalities we have, you know, we started our very first diversity night with improv. And I was talking to Philip a little while ago, and he teaches improv. So we might do another improv again soon, too. It's all these things to mix it up, you know. And now we have Jerry next week. He's going to do, again, I'm not going to be here, but that's okay. We'll try to live stream it. You know, get someone who can, it's so much easier now to live stream, so they can just click a button. If not, at least record it so we can file it and archive it and play it back again. Give you a copy for your portfolio. Drumming resumes too. That's why I've been discombobulated. They took a hiatus, right? A mini hiatus. Oh, all the logistics of the chaos of the world. So this Tuesday, 6 to 7:30. Oh, yeah, Fred Goodnight. Does anybody not know Fred Goodnight? It's like, maybe I did that the way around. If you know Fred, good night, raise your hand. We yeah, always a love offering, and again, sound like the run on record. Would that be the digital CD? How would you do that nowadays? Yeah, but I've had my iPod skip before. I'm like, how did that happen? So anyway, to be the run on iPod, he's groovy. It's a love offering. No one ever turned away. Course in Miracles, Thursday night, 7 to 8:15 p.m. We've been having a lot of fun with Course in Miracles. We have new people coming and going all the time. We're part of the network for being on this international group of people that meet for Course in Miracles. So come on out for that. And I believe we're done. Cool. So if I could have the bumper sticker picture. This Scott's like, what? So that's the only bumper sticker he has on his car, and I've known Scott for a really long time, and I've known that if he's going to put something on it, it's going to be something that means something to him. The only bumper sticker I've ever had on any of the cars I've ever had was one that said "Practice random acts of kindness." So, obviously I knew that was important to him, but as I would see this bumper sticker here and there, because we're driving, and I'd just be seeing that and seeing it and seeing it. And I just thought one day how true that is. How true it is about how our soul as a people is truly married to, tethered to, tied to, whatever you want to say it, enjoined completely with how we treat our most vulnerable members. And understanding there's all different forms of vulnerability. All different kinds of vulnerability. It's funny because Margie's not here today, and I wanted her to be here because she would laugh. Because for me, one of my most vulnerable moments didn't happen until I was in my late 20s. And it's like I got sick with a rare blood disease called TTP, and it came out of nowhere. I never heard of it before. You have better odds of being struck by lightning twice in the same spot on a Wednesday than getting this thing. And when it came on, it was just like it started with I'm just tired, can I go home early type scenario, to the point where Margie and I hung out all the time. We were hanging out with her and her boyfriend at the time named Harry. We just spent the weekend together just hanging out. She had a pool and jacuzzi. We just always do all the airy-fairy stuff. But I was like, something was going on. I couldn't make it from the bathroom to the living room without taking a break. I had no energy, and I didn't know what was going on yet. So they brought me into the hospital, and they have a wheelchair for me. And this is this point about vulnerability, because I don't want to be in a wheelchair. I'm like, no, I stand on my own 2 feet. And they said, Mark, we're holding you up. And I looked, and they were up there, and I was like this. And I didn't realize that they were actually holding me up because I was kind of looking down at the ground. And there's that first moment of vulnerability to where I realized, what? I'm not doing it on my own. And I surrendered because it was Margie and Harry, and I see how they were really struggling to hold me up. I was dead weight. They were literally holding me up. The chair was right there. All I had to do was let go, and I did. And all these things transpired very, very, very quickly, because before this, I ran 10 miles a day, bench press 275 pounds, could do the rings, and I was so athletic and agile. I was invincible at the time. I was in my youth, man. I had all of these things going in my body. And then all of a sudden, this happened. And now I'm in the hospital, and some of this is kind of funny, but it's the vulnerability and realizing what one goes through, even just in a hospital. It's like, I had to pee, and the nurse is trying to give me the little container thing, and I didn't have enough energy to lift my own arm to go down there and get myself. And she's like, do you want me to do it for you? And it was just that quiet moment of surrender. And there wasn't embarrassment or humility, but it was definitely vulnerability. And she was gentle. I could see it in her eyes. She could see in my eyes that I was completely lost in this moment of, I can't even lift my arm to do that for myself. And especially being so young and somebody who was so strong, such a vulnerable moment. And it's like the importance of how the people were with me impacted me during this visit. Because for this part of my life, the first time it happened, both Easter and Christmas, I was in the hospital. But I was in the hospital for almost 3 months at a time this year. And all kinds of crazy things were happening, which is a completely different story, because this is more about how one feels when we're vulnerable and how people show up and how we cope with it and how we deal with it ourselves. It's like I remember the second time when it happened, they didn't know what to do with me, and I didn't die, and they expected me to. And when I didn't die in the night, they said, "Wow," and they sent me to Shands in Gainesville, because they just were like, hands in the air, what do we do? This is 20, 30 years ago, so now they know what's going on with this. But back then they didn't. So that the doctors were in a vulnerable place too. And that's what this talk is about understanding the vulnerability of everybody included, because doctors do not like to not know what's going on. I don't know if you've ever noticed that about a doctor, that their egos are a mile high. And thank God they are for what they do, because what a vulnerable place for them to be in, to be able to deal with a person's life and be able to say, I think this is what it is, and then to treat that and to hope they're right, because sometimes one treatment for one thing, if that's not the thing, could really damage a person's body. So to think how vulnerable the people in the medical industry are as well, as they're dealing with people at their most vulnerable moments. It's like you're being poked and prodded at any given time. And it's like, it's how you deal with it, how they deal with it, all at the same time. And it's like the songs that Debbie already picked for the music today. They already represent what's going on. And the song that we have for special music later is definitely going to represent what's going on. But I look at all the different things, and some of them were fun. I had to deal with it the best way I could. I remember this one morning when a young nurse came in, and to me she was cute, and I was only 27, 28 years old when this happened. But it's like 5:30 in the morning, so she's trying to be quiet and gentle. And some would come in like a bull in a china shop. It'd be 5 in the morning, they just put on all the lights fully, come in, grab your arm, start, moving you around. It's like, and you were sleeping. Well, I got to get my blood, whatever you call them. What do they do when they make their rounds? Get all their vitals vitals and draw blood. So this one time, the girl comes in, she's being very sweet. Every nurse was different. Every phlebotomist was different. And she comes in, and she puts the thing around my arm, and then does the thing like this. And she goes, "Okay, little prick." I'm like, "Well, you don't have to call me names." She turned beet red in a heartbeat. And we started giggling, and then I kept going with it, and I'm like, "And how did you know anyway?" I'm like, it is a blood disease. There's no extra blood being allocated to this area at all. But for a guy, though, that was a vulnerability, because that is a true. He was gone for months. Because think of the biology. Hey, man, a thing is what it is. Play with it and be in it and own it. Because women go through different kind of vulnerabilities when they have things show up in their world. How many different causes have we marched for breast cancer, because that's that part of womanhood that it hurts in that vulnerable moment. Well, for a guy, that's part of his masculinity too, or so we're taught, because it's got nothing at all to do with it. But it does have something to do with your virility and all those things. So in that moment, that was a very vulnerable place for me, and I was playing with it as much as I could. That sounded really weird, but I mean... that I didn't plan. The vulnerability. Anyway, that was funny. That's live stream too. That no extra charge for that one. But it's to understand that we all have a different level of vulnerability. You know, I watched my brother as he was going through his last moments, and it landed on him completely different because he had a different set of circumstances with diabetes and whatnot. And I look at all the different ways that we become vulnerable and how the people deal with it. That moment between me and that young phlebotomist became a humorous moment because I was a scary looking patient. I bled out of my pores. It's like the blood cell is this big, but the hemoglobin inside is a smaller molecule, and it could seep through the vein walls. So I was scary looking. And there's other funny stories of the scary looking things that have happened, but this is more about that vulnerability of what happens to one as a patient, and then knowing that when you're being served by somebody in the industry, that they're more vulnerable than you think. And it's like to even as a patient almost take in consideration what they may be going through. There's a lot of different ways and it shows up. So there's a fellow named David Roth. He's one of my favorite folk singers of all time. He's made me cry more than any other folk singer. Thank you, David. And because his lyrics move me. So there's a song that he sings a cappella that I'm going to do for you today. So I bless your ears. We have Reiki share tonight, so if any damage is done, we'll hook you up later. But it's about a story of a man and what he went through on his journey through this vulnerability. If you want, you can pop that picture, and if I'm in the way, tell me, I'll move. I'm breathing. Manuel Garcia, proud youthful father, was known on his block as a hard-working man. With a wife and a family, a job and a future, he had everything going according to plan. One day Manuel Garcia, complaining of stomach pains, went to the clinic to find out the cause. His body was found to have cancerous tissue, ignoring the order of natural laws. So Manuel Garcia of Milwaukee County checked into the medical complex in town, suddenly seeing his 39 years like the sand in an hourglass plummeting down. What are my choices? Cried Manuel Garcia. You basically too was the doctor's decree. Your cancer untreated will quickly be fatal, but treatment is painful with no guarantees. And so it began Manuel's personal odyssey, long sleepless nights and a chemical days, with echoes of footsteps down long lonely corridors, tolling his minutes and hours away. With the knowledge that something inside was consuming him, Manuel Garcia was filled with despair. He had already lost 40 pounds to the cancer, and now to the drugs he was losing his hair. After 9 weeks in treatment, the doctor came calling. Said, Manuel, we've done just about all we can do. Your cancer can go either way at this juncture. It's out of our hands, and it's now up to you. He looked in the mirror, a sad, frightened stranger, so pale, so wrinkled, so lonely, so scared. Diseased, isolated, and feeling unlovable. 126 pounds and no hair. He dreamed of his Carmen at 60 without him, his 4 little children not having their dad, of Thursday night card games at Julio's, and everything else he'd not done that he wished that he'd had. Awakened from sleep on the day of his discharge, by shuffling feet moving all round his bed, Manuel opened his eyes and thought he was still dreaming, his wife and 4 friends with no hair on their heads. He looked and he blinked again, not quite believing, 5 shiny heads all lined up side by side. And still to this point not a word had been spoken, and soon they were all laughing so hard that they cried. And the hospital hallways were ringing with voices Patron, we did this for you, said his friends, and they wheeled him out to the car they had borrowed. Amigo, estamos contigo, babes. So Manuel Garcia returned to his neighborhood, dropped off in front of his two-bedroom flat. The block seemed unusually deserted for Sunday, so he drew a deep breath and adjusted his hat. But before he could enter, the front door flew open. Manuel was surrounded with faces he knew. 50-odd loved ones and friends of the family, with clean-shaven heads and the words, "We love you." So Manuel Garcia, a person with cancer, a father, a husband, a neighbor, a friend, with a lump in his throat, said, "I'm not one for speeches, but here I have something that needs to be said. I felt so long in my baldness and cancer. Now you stand beside me, thank heaven above, for giving me strength that I need. May God bless you, and long may we live with the meaning of love. For giving me strength that I need, may God bless you, and long may we live with the meaning of love." Thank you. So there's all kinds of vulnerable moments. Sweating your butt off on a hot day when you already sweat when you sing. Spirit just shows up and goes, "Oh, we'll just make it hot for you first, so you'll already be hot." But as long as you're willing to go anyway. There's so many different ways of being vulnerable in this world. Think of that man's journey. And that article up there is from 1985. It's a true story. I didn't realize it for the longest time that was a true story until I, listened to David Roth on and on and on, and then saw this article and all the different ways that those people showed up for him during his vulnerability. And that's just one aspect of being vulnerable. So I was talking to Scott the other day, and it's like I brought this subject up, and I'm like, think about, or was this when you and I were talking? I don't know. I was talking to another human. And I was talking about, like, why do cops have bulletproof vests and taser guns and billy clubs or whatever they call them now, and guns? Why do they have all that stuff on them? It's just one of the most vulnerable jobs that are out there. We would think that they're all protected and, because there's some of them that have gone a little bit south in their thinking. But the reason that they're all protected is because they're in one of the most vulnerable jobs that are out there. So when here's another situation in life to where, okay, I can be a patient and understand my vulnerability and realize that and seek and want compassion from the medical staff because, hey, look at me, I'm a patient, I'm vulnerable, I'm a human. My systems aren't working and functioning. I'm lying flat on the bed and now you have to take care of me. But to recognize and realize that vulnerability in that the medical staff, and to know that your life is in their hands and they're freaking out about that. Well, now take that step up to, I just got pulled over by a cop and I'm really pissed off because I don't want a ticket. And just breathe for a moment and think about him or her walking up to your car and their whole life, not just your ticket, but their whole life. They have a wife or a husband. They have a family. They have children. They have somebody that they want to go home to and hug, and to look into the mirror and see their eyes like we talk about with the peace, and to know that this is the most vulnerable moment in their job, in their day, is walking up to your window because they have no idea who you are, and you know who you are. You know your love. They don't know you yet. Can you imagine what might be going through their mind? Am I going to go home today? Am I going to get to see my baby? Will I hug him or her one more time? Will I get to see another sunrise? And then they walk up to your window. And you go, and now the rest is up to you. I would invite us all to go, good morning, good afternoon. Hi, officer. How can I help you? Like, or be playful. What did I do? Sorry. Apologize for making you stop today. Anything to let them know that you are present on their side. That's just one other job. That's just one other way. All the different ways that we look at the people in our world and what kind of vulnerabilities they have. What about the people that are challenged in this lifetime? They come in here, some in here, and instead of walking on their 2 feet, we have to roll them in. What about that vulnerability to live a life like that? And how do we treat them? Do we ignore them? Do we placate them? Patronize them? Oh, well, and fawn over them differently than we would fawn over each other? Or can we just understand what their vulnerabilities are and what their vulnerabilities are not and treat them accordingly? Because any person that I've ever known that has been physically challenged in any way will get really pissed off and hurt when he started condescending to them on a mental or emotional level. It's like, I can't walk, I can think, and I can feel, and I can talk. What's wrong with your brain? This is the only thing that's not working for me right now. Everything else works. Can you please look at me here and talk to me as a being instead of talking to me as a broken thing in front of you? But also to honor that puts you in a vulnerable place because you don't know what to do. And it's unknown for you, and it's weird, and it's different, and I don't want to look because I don't want to hurt their feelings. That's a vulnerable place to be in because it's not a place where we know what to do. That's what vulnerability is. I'm a little insecure here. It's a little shaky, but I'm going to go anyway. And when you don't know what to do, there's always one good thing you can do, and that's say nothing and look in their eyes. And then something will come in a moment. We were talking about this a moment ago, Philip and I, when we were talking about theater, we were talking about speakers, we were talking about sales pitches. And in any thing in life, there's always that moment where silence is golden. Where just stop talking, be willing to be in the silence for a moment, and allow what happens to happen. We think we have to fill in the gaps so much. Stay with each other. Look in their eyes. But then I'll be vulnerable. Yes. And when two people sit there and be vulnerable with each other from that place, have you ever noticed what happens? Let me ask it that way. What has happened in your body when that stuff has happened? When you sat there, got out of your way, and stayed in somebody's eyes without the giggles, without the nervous words, and just let yourself be there. What did you start noticing happening in your own body? Anybody, just shout it out. Raise your hand. Or raise your hand, shout it out. Or don't raise your hand and shout it out. Whatever order you want to do it in, I don't care. Relaxed. Loving. What's that song that we empowered? Sharing. So connected. Anybody ever feel more peaceful? It's like, have you ever been so chaotic in your mind because you were stressed out and going through whatever you were going through? And everybody's story is different. Doesn't matter what your story is. When you look in their eyes, they're in chaos. Doesn't matter what the verbiage is. Does not matter what the body of the context, the dialogue is, the bylines. Doesn't matter. But whatever the story is, in that moment, you can catch up with that. What matters is they're wigging out. And we all want, to be brought back to that place of peace. They're in a very vulnerable moment because they're freaking out. They're wigging out. All systems are not aligned, and they're wanting alignment. They're wanting to come back to center, and that's a vulnerable place for us to be in with each other, to be able to come before you and stand here in front of you and go, holy crap, I'm tangled up. Or holy crap, I'm tangled up. There's no accidents. To be able to say that in front of somebody, especially when you're the one who's supposed to show up untangled, sometimes that lands on me as a workshop leader and talker and stuff. Like, how could you go up there and do a talk when you're all tangled in this or that in your mind? It's because that willing to be vulnerable and that willing to untangle myself through my vulnerability is going to get me untangled even more, because I'm going to own it. I was telling Debbie I wrote this blues song that's funny, but it's because I'm making fun of my poverty. I'm moving through it by like owning every single thing that negatively has happened to me and made fun of it. The whole premise of our workshop is a thing is what it is, own it, and then you can create with it. So all this stuff was happening. I had this song that was funny and happening, and I got it out of my body. I owned it and I created with it, and I'm moving beyond it so that I can be the abundant self that I know I am. So in any kind of vulnerability, it's like, golly, my shoulder's been sore. I'm not going to be able to help them lift that. I got to tell somebody, because they may rely on me to lift the other half. And if I don't tell anybody, I'm going to drop it and it's going to break and they're going to be mad at me. But in telling somebody, a multitude of things happen. Well, like, well, is this shoulder good? I'm like, yeah. Well, like, well, why don't you get on the right side of it and carry it this way? Oh, good idea. And then somebody else might go like, Ari's right here, goes, come here, I'll work on that shoulder for you. Oh, great. But none of those other things would have happened if I wasn't willing to be vulnerable in the moment and say, ow, happened, or I'm tangled, I'm not as clear as we would want me to be for this project. So can we work on the untangling first? Now, I was talking with Shannon, I think, about business and stuff. When I was a manager at K Jewelers, all of the stuff in the handbooks would always say, like, leave personal problems at home. And as a human being that's been with other human beings, I know that that's impossible to do. What the hell are they thinking? Leave it. That's impossible. A feeling carries with you wherever you go. It comes with you. So I would tell my people, bring it in on purpose. Come into me and tell me, hey, this is what I got going on today. We may be able to work it right then and there. Or I can tell you, okay, can you put that aside enough to be here with me today? Be here for you, make money for us as the team, and move forward, and we can address that later. We can look it up, find a resource, a resolution for this thing you're going through. Or that person now, as the manager or leader or whatever, I can go, you know what, you're right. Whew. You need a day. Thank you for telling me where you're at, because I can really assess and see as you're expressing to me, you have a day off. And then let them go heal whatever they need to heal, mind, body, soul, whatever came on that human being, which is part of every single business and across the world. They're run by human beings. So how we feel is how we feel. So if they're having that vulnerable moment and you invite them to be vulnerable enough to tell you when they're off center, not up to par, tangled, man, you empower each other, because then whatever it is that you wanted to succeed at, I don't care if it's selling widgets, selling jewelry, or selling love, you're going to get that out there more, because that person now is enriched and feels good in themselves because they had the time to heal whatever it was, or to just say, this is in my way, and then I could own it and create with it. All of that happens from just being able to be vulnerable and being willing to have that love to carry each other once in a while. It's like if Scott is limping today, it doesn't mean he's going to be limping tomorrow. So if he's walking and needs to lean on my shoulder for a day or two while we're walking, then we do that, right? And then there's that other moment where I'll lean on him. There's a point in life where we all carry each other. It's how you look at this. It's how am I looking at the vulnerabilities of the people within our community and within all the world? And am I looking at it as a burden that I'm carrying? Or am I looking at it as something that when I carry, I become more because I'm sharing and I'm carrying that burden? It's still a burden. I have strong shoulders to carry them on purpose because I carry it forward for the world. And it's something that I'm doing with gladness. It's something that I'm sharing with people, and it just fills my heart to do. When you go help someone that's more vulnerable than you, how do you feel when you're done? Two things got healed that day. Them and you. Be willing to be vulnerable enough to go out and ask someone if they need help too. Be willing to be vulnerable enough in yourself to go beyond your own feelings and tap into their life for a moment, like that cop or that paramedic or that person that's a first emergency responder that every single day of their job is vulnerable. Teachers, they got all of our kids' futures in their hands, and all of the parents telling them how they should do it, and the school board and the principal and the syllabus and their own. That's a vulnerable place to be in when you have that many people's babies in your hands and you want to make sure you do it right and you know you're going to mess up. All of these places require us to throw love at these people and to throw love at these situations and know that That's where that power comes from. And as a community, if we keep doing that with each other on purpose and being focused to know that the most vulnerable moment can turn into the most empowering moment if I inject what into it? Love, love, love everybody. Love, love, right? That's all it's about. And that's really all it's ever about. All the different rhetoric that I have going on in my own life, we have going on in our own lives that may bump us into a wall, that may bump us into the thorns and the patches that make our fruit not as sweet. All of that can be remedied with simply love. Loving yourself enough to go in the mirror and say, I do love you. Loving each other to know, loving each other enough to say, I love you as well. And loving each other in your most vulnerable points, and then loving yourself enough to, when you're in that most vulnerable point, to still go outside and play, to still show up, to still go and be with people, even though it's scary, even though you're afraid, and know that they're going to love on you and they're going to fill you up, because that's what they have. They have love. And so it is. Ahom Atau Kayasa.